So, welcome everyone. Welcome to the Something Big podcast powered by Seven Lending. And we have one of the guests I've been waiting for since I made a decision to start this podcast, and that is Raj Aadmi. So, Raj, thank you so much for being here.
Such a pleasure to be here, and I'm so impressed with how what you've put together here and how exciting this is. So,
Yeah.
I really appreciate you inviting me to come on to speak to you.
Thank you. And for those of you who don't know, and I don't know if you remember, but the story of even how I came across Raj was, I think just when COVID time was beginning to hit, one of my friends was like, hey, you got to check out this guy, Raj Aadmi. And I didn't know him before. Then I started reading up on you. I saw about Speed Wash, how it was doing so well. Then I started following you on Instagram.
Right.
And I think how everyone recognizes you is by early morning posts, hitting the gym every day. And it was like, that was it. That's the guy I want to follow. I love his consistency. And then I think we tried meeting together a few number of times.
That's right.
And eventually we got a chance to meet.
Yeah, Starbucks. Huh?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I think it was your office. We met
Well, first
office.
originally.
Yeah. And then even just with a single conversation, like I'm grateful for a lot of value you shared. You shared a few different lessons. Right. Even you talked about giving and so many other things, and they were so helpful. And I couldn't wait till the time I could meet again with you. And I know there's so much value out of this conversation.
No, I really
so
appreciate
thank
that.
you for taking out the time.
Thank you, Raghav. Thank you so much. That's a very humbling start. So thank you.
Awesome. So for there's so much to share about what you do. And just to give you guys a brief introduction, if you don't know already, you've started Speed Wash. You also have investments in a spa, like a healthcare.
Well, we're basically, a lot of people, Speed Wash people see as obviously a front. It's one of our operating businesses.
Yes.
But ultimately, we're just a real estate holding company with cash flowing assets.
Yes.
So the businesses that I'm in, similar to Speed Wash or medical clinics or just retail complexes is all because of just cash flow. Okay. So I try to find prime property and cash
business
flow.
out of it.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So I think I'll give you an idea about this podcast.
Sure.
So I was thinking about starting a podcast for a number of weeks or number of years. It was in my head that how can I meet people regularly in different fields or who are ahead of me in different areas, and how can I consciously learn from them? And that was one of the reasons I reached out earlier, is because I just wanted to meet and learn from you. And I was like, how can I make this a regular practice? Because I know one of the key things to grow is to surround yourself with people who are growing.
Right.
And then it hit me, this song was playing in my head, Something Big is Coming, Something Big is Happening, that song. And I was like, like even as a kid, if someone asked you, what did you want to be when you grow up?
Right.
I used to say, Kuch Bada or something big.
Right.
That was my go-to line. So the reason for this podcast is, hey, I want to do something big. I want to meet people who've done something big. So that's why, hence the podcast.
Well, something big is obviously where we even started too. We all started at a small position. And even it's a beautiful name for the podcast, because that's what we strive for, to surround ourselves with people that are ahead of us that we can learn from. Yeah. So something big is something what we're always trying to approach and after. So you couldn't have named it better.
Absolutely. Right? And the other thing, I don't know if you agree with this, but I think if you're constantly thinking big in life, it changes your life.
It takes the same energy to think small as it does to think big. So why not? It doesn't matter if it's even a real estate deal. If you're looking for a single family house versus multifamily, it's the same energy to get to the finish line. Yeah. So you're the right mindset is always to go that level. And think even I always get actually told on a regular basis as well that you're not, my mentors are telling me, you're not thinking big enough yet when I think I am. Right. So it's like reach for the moon if you can.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. That's awesome. And how we want to do this podcast is we want to go through some of the things in different events in life. Maybe can you go briefly into, I know you started entrepreneurship at the age of 13.
Correct.
Maybe you want to talk about how you started, like briefly, and what you were doing in your teenage, early 20s.
Yeah. So I remember my first business was online. And back then we had, at 13, we had modems. I guess. Yeah. I still mentally think I'm 21. Physically, maybe I'm a little bit older, right? But back in those days, the pager was big, and technology wasn't great. So. I don't know if I should actually publicly say this because I could get in trouble for this, but I was trying to sell pirated software. And the thing was, okay, well, if I can get someone to buy this software from me, which is a video game or something, it took like 4 or 5 hours to download, and they could just, on every month I would sell them a new game. They would sell me a subscription at that time of $20 a month. So I remember my dad, we were living in East Vancouver, and there would be mail coming in, and people with a $20 bill, would show up at the door. And he's like, "What the heck is this?" And he goes, "And plus, why is our house phone line always busy?" Right? Because you have that fax going, right, whatever it was, and that was just data transferring that way, and so that that was my first dab into entrepreneurship. Like, oh well, I can make money out of selling a product than nobody else. Having said that, it was a little bit illegal back then, but from piracy laws, which I didn't know at 13. Right? But that was my first venture into entrepreneurship.
Nice. And then subsequently, when did you get in real estate?
Well, over years. So, I mean, speaking about real estate, the reason even how I got got close to real estate was because I was fortunate enough to have a father that went in that direction. He came from humble beginnings, right? The typical $8 story from India, right? And where a lot of our parents had come from. And his transition from a heavy duty mechanic to getting into learning the trade of fixing the stuff, which was excavators at the time, and I think he worked for fitting at the time. He then realized that instead of me fixing these excavators, he would watch what they were doing, and they were making income digging houses or for lots. So then he went in the path of, okay, well, I'll fix a cheap excavator up, fix it, operate it myself, and I'll start doing that things for developers. So he started that then he realized from there on in that, oh, hang on a sec, if I'm already digging the hole for the house, why not build a house? So started building houses, and then became a real estate agent, started selling the houses.
Oh, he did.
So I watched as a child, because we were very poor, my dad grow from nothing to something. And being an immigrant, where even as a kid, as growing up, there's a language barrier back then when they're transitioning.
Absolutely.
So I go, if Dad can do this, I can be unstoppable because I'm born and raised here. So that was my my start in the real estate.
Absolutely.
Understanding it that way.
And one thing about your dad, I haven't met him, but I've seen him so much. He is so full of life. I've seen him sing. That's like when I'm at that age, I want to have the energy he does, and I can't wait to meet him one day. Though I really want to meet him.
I was talking to him now, just on the way here, and I guess he had watched one of the other podcasts was on, and he was like, "You should have said this. You should have said this. You should have said that. You can say it better." I'm like, I know, Dad, you're right. At 88 years old, he's still on it. Right?
That's awesome. That's awesome. So you got into real estate, and I know things were going really well. I think you built a valuation of almost $100 million for your company.
Yes, we went. I mean, obviously there's a long story to get to that level, but back in 2008 when we had the economic downturn, I was highly leveraged. I was in a major expansion, and things shifted. Right, at the time I was involved with car dealerships. Had the old car wash model, which was self-serve bays and rollover automatics, typical what you see at a gas station. So they were great land holds, but they weren't high revenue generators. And then I had oil change facilities, sort of like at the time we were called Lube World. Jiffy Lube Canada bought them all out, but it was like the Mr. Lubes and all that stuff. So I had all these operating businesses, but again, it was just a big real estate play. And I was just trying to find better ways to operate on those lands to make better than, say, just leasing it out to a retailer.
Sorry, just to pause on that second. What age were you in at around 2000?
When I first started my first car wash, I was probably in my 20s.
Nice. And how did the first deal happen? Because
first, well, if I rewind back from there, because I had built capital up, I was building a lot of other business for other people, and that's how I was making income. So I was doing a lot of tenant improvements. I was doing build-outs as a general contractor at GC. So I was making percentages on each build, with the H&R Block accounting offices that I did, and I did multiples of those. I was making around 20 grand a pop back then in those days, and that's when I was in my late teens, early 20s. So I had capital that was working out. And then at one point in my my young career, I built a car wash for somebody on Hastings. And and I looked at the model, and I saw that it was changing. It was turning a lot of coins into quite a bit of a revenue.
Yeah.
So I started looking at the whole capital cost to build these things out, what the land cost was. And I said, hey, this is a lot higher return than a strip mall is.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, I got to start exploring this business. And at the time, we were growing some more stuff in Surrey. And Surrey didn't have something to that scale. So I started the first one on 72nd and 132nd with some of the capital and also financial and loan support from my father back then.
Wow, that's awesome.
So that's how kind of that whole venture had started off.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then, so fast forward, you now have a bunch of these businesses and properties you're managing.
Yeah, when we're growing on that level. And we're just, I mean, we're looking at, again, it's just always a real estate play for me. So I look at the long-term vision now, right? Before I was looking a lot shorter, so I would try to grow fast and then obviously continue my revenue stream, but get into more and more real estate assets. Now I look at it from a cash flow perspective. You know, if I'm running debt service ratios, you know, we want to have good comfort, 2 to 1 minimum, not 1.2 to 1. So I look at everything and then have a lot more controlled growth.
Yeah.
But I also don't like assets that are just paying the bills or just paying the mortgage, because what happens in climates like this, when interest rates climb, you can go backwards.
But so sorry, like one of the first, like a really good nugget I caught right in the start is you said, hey, we're a real estate holding company which finds cash flow assets. Right. So, I mean, I think that is key in this environment, because so many people are just obsessed that, hey, it's Vancouver, buy a property, it'll appreciate.
The appreciation values.
But the holding kills them, especially in a market like this.
No, you're absolutely right. That's where I had gotten stung. So I realized that, you know what, if you just look at historical data in real estate, it's always doing this, right? But if you look at it long term, you can and withstand those waves, then you're always going to win in real estate. And my short term thinking in the past is what got me in trouble. Long term thinking, like, you know, now if I'm going on any project, I'm looking at it from a perspective as, okay, let's just see there's a 30% decline in revenue. Can I still pay the rates? If the rates doubled to double digits, can I 10, 12%, let alone where they are today, can I still sustain? And that's where my comfort level is. So I'm way more risk adverse than I used to be, which not necessarily is a good thing when you want to grow fast, but because I got stung, you know, it's kind of that thing in my back of mind. I said, I better ease off now and not go after every property that's out there that's available.
But on a different note, though, would you, if you were in your 20s now, would you do it differently, or would you still go through that?
No, absolutely not. I mean, I would definitely go through what I've gone through. You know, a lot of people ask me that, saying, Raj, would you do anything different now from, you know, how things worked out? And I said, and even taking the massive loss, like losing, you know, a company that once had a valuation of $100 million was painful. Right?
People take their life to build $100 million, and that to back in 2008.
Yeah,
that's
and you know, it was a window, it was a 3-4 year window when that was all going on. But that's also been my biggest life's lesson today. And today I look at that as a blessing. It's like you can wear your scars, right? And that's my proud scar today. Saying, you know what, because I went through that, it's gotten my skin so much more thicker. And I was capable of doing it at that time because you're young and you're energetic, you got drive, you can get back up. You know, if that was to happen to me in my future, it'd be more and more difficult. Because as we get older, we start losing we start losing energy. And, you know, the energy even I have today in 10 years from now may not have. So even when I'm excelling in any business right now, my focus is massive growth still. However, I do know there's going to come a point where it's going to be calm growth. And, you know, I'm more relaxed because my energy is not there. I'm not on the ball like I am, you know, as I get older.
You're okay with the different seasons of growth.
Exactly, right? And that's why when you're younger, it's that time to take all these chances.
Take big risks.
Right? Just go after it. Make these hits. We're going to have hits. I mean, you know, if you have 10 deals that fail, out of that, you know, the 11th deal would work. And, you know, that one is what makes the difference.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And those 10 is what builds your character. Right? It makes you stronger and better as you go through all this turmoil in life. And that goes for anything in life. Right? It doesn't matter if you're going into real estate and you're going through up and down these hurdles. It's also the same for relationships. Right? I mean, you might go through multiple relationships through your young age and realize who your life partner is going to be at the end. Right? So I've looked at all those things throughout my life and my history and my past, and I look at it saying,
the dots connect.
Yeah, it's like, there was a reason I had to go through all that stuff. Maybe I went through a tremendous amount of pain during that time, but it's such a blessing today. And that's what, that's what I try to preach now, saying, guys, when you're young, right, you got the energy, go after it, right? Don't hold back because it'll work out in the end, right? Yeah. It's just that you got to go and take that step and do it now.
Absolutely.
Right?
That's amazing. Yeah. So maybe if I can, break this down to different parts, because I have a lot of questions about energy, moving forward, all the things you're doing right now. But maybe can we briefly talk about, just what happened in your 20s, around 2008, and how the story about that maybe.
Well, 2008, we like I said, we had a lot of stuff going on. We were expanding our car wash model, which was Wash World. We were expanding our oil change model, which was Lube World. We were expanding our car dealership, which was called Auto World. And when we were opening up stores in Maple Ridge and in Chilliwack. I think if people know Chilliwack, it's still there. They're all actually still there. It was right on the corner of Vetter and Number 1 Highway. So it's a 3-acre parcel.
Good location.
All locations were prime. So in 2008, we had gotten the funding from the banks to grow these stores. And, our showroom was, say, $10 million at the time. And, I'm just going to specifically talk about the car dealership. That was my first massive jump into the car dealership space. So it was new business for me. I had a great GM that could run it and manage it. So, and we had the right vision in terms of marketing and stuff to really elevate the used car market. Selling premium used cars, anywhere from $50,000 to $70,000 was our price point, like an Escalade or things like that. But very clean, low mileage stuff, right? And a lot of stuff back then was importing, exporting to the U.S., so there's a lot of margins there. So long story short, we built this beautiful building. We had put in about 40% of our equity, 60% was financed from the bank, and we had a $5 million floor line that was set up as soon as the showroom doors opened. We had finished our building, and we were ready to open, and the market shifted. Some of the biggest car manufacturers in the world were going through bankruptcy. The bank pulled my floor line. So they said, Raj, I'm sorry, we gave you the money to build this building. However, in this climate, we cannot give you the money to put the cars in the showroom. And I said, well, as you know, how do you operate a business without product?
Yeah, without inventory.
And especially with the car, you work on a 10% gross margin on these cars, so it's all about volume. And, we need 200-300 cars on the lot to make the numbers work.
Otherwise, 10% is nothing. That's
exactly, right? So we got stuck. We got a situation where I said, okay, well, we have no choice now. So I started leveraging all of our other company and all our cash flow to start filling that car dealership with
build
cars.
The inventory. Yeah.
We were in that growth, but we were also building a huge store, another car wash, another oil change in Maple Ridge at the time, which was another $8 or $9 million build out, which hadn't opened yet. So it was in construction. So our cash was leveraged across the board. On top of that, in these down cycles, economy-wise, revenue goes down. So the existing business cash flow had come down probably 30%. So obviously that's going to affect our bottom line. On top of that, we had self-serve bays. We had over 100 of these coin-operated self-serve bays, and that's where you drive in this lot and you have the sponge and thing.
The whole pipe and everything. Yeah,
I didn't want to think about that business because I freaking just it was devastating. But so in the self-serve bays, you have coin operated. You can only put like a quarter in there, and you put 4 quarters. It starts you for 4 minutes. So we had those all across country. The problem that we had was it was, back then there was technology wasn't there to take credit card. There was nothing like that. It was all cash and coin operated. HST also happened in that time.
Oh, okay.
HST then took an additional 7% of our bottom line.
Oh,
I could not, if I was starting a $2 cycle in a self-serve wash tunnel, that additional 14 cents. Yeah. I couldn't charge because you can't put pennies in this little box. So, at the time it was a down market, so the competitors weren't raising their prices either.
You can't increase it to $3 or $4.
Exactly. So I couldn't increase it, or it would have killed my volume. Yeah. perfect storm again, I had to eat that 7% from my bottom line. And when you're only running on a 10% margin of profit, so I was left with 3% now in profit just to sustain those existing stores. But I needed all that money then to fund my growth and to my car dealership that I started. So again, it came to a cash flow crunch.
Wow.
And you know, I was sitting on mortgage payments back then. We're sitting around $200,000. I had approached the bank, and I said, "Give me some principal relief." And by that was, you know, your payments would drop down to say subsequently half, right? So my payment would have been $100,000, which I could have sustained and rode through the next 24 months. And that was my plan: is, you know, let's just ride this wave out, and get that car dealership somehow, you know, working or functioning, or even sell it off, start liquidating. However, the bank had other plans because they just turned a switch and said, no, either pay us out, and at the time I think we were about, you know, say $30 million in loans, and or we're putting your business on a chopping block, which was for sale. So essentially that's what happened. They said, Raj, either come up with the money or we're going to sell your business. They kicked me out of the business. And you know, that was a pretty painful story, right? Okay. And you know, even fast forwarding, kicking me out, the team I had built, my CEO, chief operating officer, my entire management team, my structure, which I'd built together for 15 years, they locked me out of my own businesses because the bank said, look, Raj is no longer the controller of this company. So, you know, I remember that same day, after I had this meeting with the bank and they told me I was done, you know, I went back to my office thinking, okay, just to regroup and see what I could do to buy it back. And the door was locked and my key wouldn't work in our head office. Yikes. And all my staff was upstairs and I was power and calling it, but no one was answering my phone. And so then I started driving around our other lots that had my staff, and apparently they were some of my other managers that were still good with me, told me that, hey, we were advised by the bank and the controller not to let you on our lot so we could call the police because they think you could do something that's drastic. So, yeah, all that stuff happened. It was definitely painful, really painful part of my life, and you know, ultimately, I just had to go through bankruptcy. And bankruptcy was my end result from all of it.
And that, I know, not just like, of course, bankruptcy sounds whatever it is on paper, but I mean, just you're afraid of the judge. Like, there's so many things. Will I get out of it? There's so many questions coming. I didn't
know what bankruptcy was at the time. I didn't know what it actually during the whole time even what had happened, because I didn't know someone could take a company away. You know, something I'd built from childhood. Yeah. You know, my early 20s to where it was, 15, 18 years of business, and in one breakfast, someone can give you a letter saying, "You're done, and this company's now ours." And I asked him that. I go, "What do you mean it's yours? It's my company." And he go, "Unfortunately, Mr. Aadmi, it's not your company. It's our company because the bank has the first right on it." And I said, so it was a learning curve, but it was just so much of a shock for the first few months that I didn't know what to do. Right, I was almost numb because I didn't realize what had happened. Right, and I thought, it'll just come back to me. Yeah. Because it's mine, or even my staff, or my employees, or they'll tell me what's going on, and there's another way in, and I just went and kind of just numbed everything for a while. Yeah.
I can't even imagine that. I know. I mean, like all those questions. You're like, why me? Why, like all of those things? Because a lot of these things were outside of your control. Most of the things were.
It took me probably 2 years just to realize that, hey, this company's gone for good. Yeah. And even longer than that, to realize that there's even a possibility of me getting back up again in life, because I thought life was over at that point, and I just thought that there wasn't going to be any fix to what had happened, because there was no possibility of me trying to get up now back again in my 30s. Yeah. Wow. So it was an extremely difficult time, in so many ways, mentally, physically. It was the darkest part of my life, but looking at it now, it's the biggest blessing of my life, right?
Yeah. Can you talk to me about maybe the recovery, like coming out of it? Like, what was, you talk a lot about being underground and working. I want to know, like, actually what was going on in the recovery time. I don't want to know about that part. How did you get out of it?
The recovery time, there was actually one key turning point that made this recovery happen. And that was me going to a McDonald's. And, at the time, everyone asked, well, how were you living? And I go, fortunately, my parents and the close friends, a few friends that I had left were supportive. So my dad, gave me a place to live, and he gave me an allowance of $1,500, approximately a month back then, just to go and, my day-to-day, my groceries, my other stuff, and, just kind of figure out my life. So I was blessed that way because I didn't go to ground zero. Nothing, right? My family was there for my support. And then at one point I went to the McDonald's and, I'd spent my $1,500 on my debit card and not knowing. And then I went to go get a coffee and it declined. And I remember looking up to the server and I didn't know what to say. And I just kind of put my head down and just drove off, right? I drove just around the corner of the drive-thru and I just parked. And for a couple hours, I just sat there and thinking about my entire life. And at that point, I had actually thought that I was going to commit suicide. I had to think about my entire past and where I wanted to go in life. But, I was at a point where I thought I couldn't get back up. There was nothing else I could do. But fortunately, during that 2-hour period of me just thinking to myself and then thinking about all the positive things in my life, like my family and my close friends and everything that was going good, I turned it around and I said, I'm not going to let this be the end of my story. And that point is when I realized that I had to strengthen myself, right? I was weak. I was mentally weak. I was physically weak. I was emotionally weak.
Anyone would be with those circumstances.
Yeah, and I didn't realize how weak I was. It just took so many different steps during that dark time to get to that level. And when that, when I decided, I ultimately decided saying, you know what, forget it. I'm Raj Aadmi. I'm not gonna let this be my end. I'm going to turn this thing around, and I'm going to prove to myself, most importantly, that I'm capable of way more in this life. And that's how it changed. And from there on in, I just focused on myself. And by focusing on myself, I started going to the gym more. So working out. I started, meditating. I started, reading. I started all those attributes that you look at, when you read books or you listen to the most successful people in the world of, what are their daily routines and rituals. I just added all those things to my lifestyle. And then as time went on, my confidence built, my strength built. And then I was able to start getting back into the market and realizing that, hey, I can still do real estate flips, or I can still do, there's so many different opportunities that are here that I just didn't look at because I was so closed off to them. So once I built myself up, the universe allowed the opportunity to come and me to accept them. And that's how I started my journey again.
That's how the light came in. Yeah.
So I was fortunate. And I mean, today I look at the McDonald's, I actually wanted to go buy that McDonald's, but now I actually have tenants that are McDonald's that we're working with. So, it was a turnaround story, and the universe brought saying, listen, here's your pat in the back. Now we're going to give you these types of tenants, and they're going to be paying you, and you can go buy whatever coffee you want, right? Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
But just on that note, right, there's people who are going through different kinds of adversities, especially in this climate.
Yes.
So if there's any 20-some-year-old or a 30-year-old out there, regardless of the age, who feels like they're going through financial turmoil, personal relationship, whatever, and you had to give them advice on getting out, like, hey, so and so, these are things you could do. Like, what would be your advice to someone going through adversity?
Well, first of all, it all depends on what adversity, right? I mean, I hear so many stories, and a lot of people reach out to me in terms like I need help, and a lot of times it's just help because they're not in a great relationship, and they don't want to get that, or they're financially not things haven't worked out the plan what they're doing. But at the end of the day, what I always tell them is like, if you're reaching out to me, you're reaching out for me because you think you've reached rock bottom. You've lost confidence in yourself. You think there's no way to get out there. But so my comment first to them always is, listen, what situation are you in personally? And I go, what do you mean? And I said, just by, how do you feel about yourself? Because I feel down. I feel like shit. I feel like a failure. I go, let's first turn that around. Because if you're feeling that, it doesn't matter what opportunity comes your way, you're not going to be able to accept it. And more importantly, you're not going to think clearly for other opportunities, right? So, I always say start on strengthening yourself mentally, physically, spiritually first, and then let's tackle the problem of what's next, right?
And how do you do that? How do you strengthen yourself?
By physically feeling good. Like, when you wake up in the morning, there's two choices that you have. Either you're going to start miserably and you're going to think about all the negatives, or you're going to start in a positive manner. And by that, it's, just how I wake up is, the first thing we'll do is, I'll try my best to stay off the phone because usually there's some negativity towards there or something that's going to bother you, right?
One email, one message.
Exactly. And
one of those,
so, and that's an exercise that I'm continuing to work on myself even. But focus on yourself in the first morning to start the tone of your day. And, by that, it's simply take time to yourself, reflect. Like, there's so many different things that people can do that make them stronger and better, depending on how their personality is. It could be positive affirmations. It could be, simply meditating. It could be working out. It could be just eating your first meal very clean. Like, so, when I wake up, I'll do my meditation first, 30 minutes when my mind is clear. From then, I'll take a nice quick shower, preferably cold showers or a cold plunging. I'll take this time to reflect, on how my day should start and what I want to tackle. Most importantly, and my peace and my real meditation is the gym. Spending my time and my best ideas will come on a treadmill or a cross trainer when my endorphins are going, I'm feeling good, my muscles are pumping, my sweat is coming down. I'm like, life is good.
Yeah, you're in that flow.
Yeah, you're in that flow. So then you come out of there, and then if you're, I've been off coffee and caffeine for a while, but when that would be another excitement thing for me if my first coffee, and then again, you're just excited about life. And then, for me, being an early riser is really important. Early riser is really, really important. But, let's just say now 7 o'clock hits, and, in my case, I'm waking up at 3. From 3 to 7, I've spent 4 hours on myself, strengthening myself and thinking and getting clarity throughout the day.
You're ahead of the curve.
7 o'clock hits, I can conquer anything. And I can anything that comes my way that I thought was difficult is easy. And also opportunities that you never thought that were opportunities come to you. And you're like, oh my God, I didn't think of it that way. Whereas if I think the same thing in the evening when my day's already burnt, those opportunities seem to close off, right? So.
Yeah, and I think that's so important because I realized I am naturally a really night bird. I'm really energetic in the night after 12. I need my focus time, but I'm trying to switch that. The days I'm waking up later is I know I'm closer to panic because the moment I wake up, I'll have this email, this file goes wrong or something is happening. And I'm in such a reactive mode that I'm not spending my creative energy anywhere. Like throughout the day, I'm more, here's a fire, deal with this. This is happening, find something, find funds, or just scrambling through it that I don't have any time to just use my creative energy wisely.
Well, you're absolutely right. And I mean, we're living in a society now. Like I was, thinking about this the other day. I'm like, when we were growing up, we didn't have all these distractions. We had distractions, but not to this degree because of this guy. It's distracting me right now, in fact. And that's difficult to manage and deal with. And it's not even us. It's like there's companies and corporations out there like the reason why we're on this podcast, YouTube, Instagram, they're monetizing on what we're doing.
Yes.
So they're pushing us to be on that and watch it, right? And that's a positive, but it's also a negative depending on what you're watching. So it's more difficult now to zone yourself out and focus on the present and the reality than it used to be.
Yes.
And there's guys that are way smarter than us that understand human psychology, that know how to make sure that we stay addicted to this thing because that's how they're earning. Right? And that is a challenge in itself in today's society. So and I think society is trying to realize that more. So I think, trying to push yourself away from those kind of things and being in the present and really knowing yourself is going to be the future now. Like that's going to be the next cool thing, I think, right?
Yeah.
And I think, as things progress, feeding your mind with the right types of tools from that are going to make you grow exponentially as well. Like this great thing you're doing, Something Big podcast, right? I mean, people watch this and learn from it and fill their mind with this kind of stuff. Yeah. It's naturally going to get them up in the morning if that's what they want to do, because they're going to see somebody else doing it that's gained from success from it.
Absolutely. Input makes such a big difference.
Yeah. And I'm just an early riser. I'm not saying, I have a lot of friends that are like you, love the evenings and they're night owls and they're more productive then, which that's good too. Yeah. But it's whatever you're conditioned to.
Yes.
And leveraging that time frame to maximize the benefit out of it, right? For me, it's that 3 to 7 a.m. window, my maximum benefit. In those 4 hours, I can accomplish what most can in a week, just because my brain is so clear. So when I can analyze a deal, I analyze it in that window, it's done within minutes, versus somebody might take hours or days to figure out the same deal, right? And just mental clarity.
Absolutely.
Right?
Totally agree with
that. That also goes back to, you know, when you're younger, you can get away with all this stuff because as we get older, that starts fading, right?
But even on that note, right? Like, you know, at your stage, is that 4 hour the reason for you having so much energy and focus?
Absolutely. Well, it goes back from that McDonald's day. When I decided to take care of myself, mentally, spiritually, physically, I realized how much impact it was on how you feel, on how everything in the universe transpires. When you are good, because we're human at the end of the day. We're going to have bad days. We're going to have good days. The good days propelled me exponentially in whatever I'm doing.
Yes.
If my mood is good, my relationship's good.
Absolutely.
Right? My wife is happy. You know, my parents are happy because you're just generally in that mood. You're jumping around there, creating good vibes in the universe.
Absolutely.
So that comes back to you.
Yes.
But when you're going out there with negative vibes, it works the exact opposite.
Yes.
And it's scary. And, you know, it's true what they say, you know, you surround yourself with who you want to become and who you are. Well, you know, I'm sure you could even give me examples of where you have a group of great people and one person that's in there is that negative mindset and it's dragging the whole team down.
Absolutely.
And I've come to realize that as well in terms of who I surround myself with.
So important.
Right? Yeah. And if you want to, it doesn't matter even if the guy is way more successful than you, but if they're just positive and they have, you know, the right intentions to make you better and stronger and they want you to excel from the bottom of their heart, you're going to get better.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, did you see this video by Simon Sinek going viral recently in which he said, hey, you need that one person to avoid burnouts who's constantly been there for you, supporting you, uplifting you. You need that. And
well, imagine having 10 of those.
Yeah. It's so
where are you going to be as a person, right?
It's amazing.
And it's, you know, the law of attraction, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
What I've come to realize is the more I surround myself with those type of people and the more I push out those negative people, the more I excel. And excel doesn't have to mean financially excelling. Excelling, just generally enjoying this time we have on this planet is a big part of our life.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
I mean, why do you want to go through this window of opportunity that we've been given from the universe miserable?
Yeah, just making money isn't the goal.
No, it shouldn't be, right? And money, you know, money is great. It provides a tremendous amount of comfort,
absolutely.
right? Yeah. But at the end of the day, I also seen a lot of miserable people that are billionaires.
Yeah.
And what is that value then?
Yeah. But in like for you specifically then, you know, of course you have, like, we see that side of social media when, of course, you're up in the morning, you're going through that up in the good mood. But throughout the day, I'm sure you have a lot of crap happen. Things go wrong. Adversity happens.
Yeah.
How do you make sure you're consciously having that zeal and enjoying life?
Spirituality is one of those things that helps correct that.
Okay.
And I didn't realize, I always thought people that were into meditation and spirituality and all that kind of stuff were losers. Right? When I was that tough guy, jock kind of thing growing up, and I was like, what a geek, man, sitting there quietly for half an hour, right?
Yeah.
Boy, was I wrong, right? Those guys were the true, you know, the true ballers, right? So, you know, and by that, what I meant was I didn't realize until any situation that came across me that was negative, with spirituality, you turned into a positive. Because you take a breather.
Absolutely.
And you look at it and you're like, there's always an angle to everything in this world, right? And if you look at it from a positive side, you can turn it into a positive. So, you know, if I had a deal that didn't go my way, you know, my past, I'd get very upset. I'd get, you know, depressed. I'm like, oh, I wish, I spent a little bit more. I put the better offer in, or I did whatever. You know, I'd take myself down. Now I look at the deal and I'm saying, okay, well, I lost that one. I can correct myself, and it's a window of opportunity for doing more and better than that was, because I learned from that stuff. So it's just, it's a way for me to adjust my mindset to continue on the path and it always happens. The universe rewards you in the strangest ways when you just act that way. Because when that door closed,
when you trust them,
something else opened that was way better. And I still, till this day, can't explain why. And the same reason why I can't even explain why giving back is so important to me in terms of just my time and my value of pointing somebody in the right direction. The universe awards me exponentially when someone else I've done something good for somebody else. It doesn't mean financially. My thing is like, money is one aspect, but if I can teach someone, or through my learnings, if I can give someone the opportunity to earn and grow on their own and change their trajectory of their life to a positive, somehow the universe rewards me for that exponentially as well, saying, Raj, you know what? You've made $100,000 this year. You've done so good this year. I'm going to give you $1 million next year. Raj, this year, we gave you $1 million. You've done so much good in the community, and you helped so many people. We're going to give you $10 million this year. And it just keeps going. And I don't even know how. Right? Sometimes I shake my head and going, holy, I've come a long way really fast.
Because I remember from one of our first conversations, like one of the biggest things I remember is you talked about I think your uncle giving you this advice that, hey, somehow I don't know how this works, but whenever I'm giving more, the more I succeed.
Yes, he did. His uncle, Dave Mon. And he's a very spiritual guy. He's he's a great mentor, a person to look up to. He just said that. He goes, Raj, you won't, I can't explain it either, but the more you give, the more you will receive, right? And that just stuck. And I said, I didn't look at it from that perspective, but I think it just, the universe, just feels that energy. And if you're true from within, it naturally just wants to be attracted to you. And so maybe the energy or the vibes, it just feels it all.
And the results are not in proportion. Like sometimes I find even if I'm not making the full effort, it's like kind of a blessing, and the results are like, wow, how did this happen?
Yes. Yeah. And I wish I could explain it. But I can't. It makes you, I think it generally just makes you feel good as well.
Absolutely. I think it humbles you.
Yes.
Definitely humbles you.
No, that is 100% true. I go, when it's just like such a great and amazing feeling when somebody comes up to you and says, Raj, thank you so much. You changed my life. And I'm like, how? You go, just by following some of the path that you've given me, just by simply changing the fact of me waking up early has changed my life so much more for the better. I'm like, you're welcome.
So for you, giving at this stage in life is, of course, your desire to helping people. But is that why social media is a tool for you for that? Like, how are you actively trying to make sure you're giving?
Yeah. So, as you know, I'm not pitching a lot of stuff on social media. I'll advertise my companies once in a while, and that's because my marketing team says you better because you have a bigger platform. But generally, the whole reason for me starting, Instagram and Facebook was just because I felt good by sharing my stories in life, because we didn't have this when I lost everything. We didn't have this voice, and I felt that it was a purpose given to me to saying, just share my stories, share my struggles, and more importantly, share the things that helped me get out of my black hole. And that's the reason why I had started it originally. Years and years ago when we were younger, we used to go on Facebook just to pick up girls, right? And I'm sure a lot of people still use it for those platforms, right? But for me, it became to a point where, I just generally said, if I can make an impact in someone's life for the better, at least they won't have to go through that almost same, and that pain where I could have killed myself, I could have died. Right? I could have not been here today. So I owe it back to the universe to at least try to change one person's life if I can. Right?
That's beautiful. Yeah. And then now just, moving more on some of the more business side of things, like what if you were starting at, let's say, a more regular stage, like for the average person out there, maybe, they have access to a few $100,000, something else. A lot of people are just in general scared of the environment, and I understand. How would you go about creating wealth in this environment?
Well, personally, if I was to start, say, with a couple $100,000, I would look at the safest bet.
Yeah.
And the safest bet for me, even what I'm doing today, is I've reverse engineered the systems where I'm looking for cash flow properties,
Yeah.
but instead of looking for the cash flow property to start with, I'm looking for the tenant. So I'm looking for the AAA tenant. And
So let's say you have a Starbucks renting there, you'll probably look for that.
one of the deals I'm doing right now is with McDonald's.
Hmm.
And, you know, McDonald's wanted to be in a certain market, in a certain area. I tied up the property. And, you know, we're in the midst right now of signing, you know, could be a 25-year deal plus 2 10-year options. So 45 years on a real estate play that I just locked up with basically no money, right? But as a condition on me getting a tenant for the facility.
Yeah.
So for 50 grand, I could, you know, even if you had to put some deposit down, you could lock up the property, have a tenant and search for the tenant that, you know, if you have a relationship with any form tenant like Starbucks or McDonald's, get a letter of interest. And now you have 2 things. You got the property under contract and you have the cash flow that's going to come in. So 0 risk to you. Now you can take it to the bank. You can tell the bank and say, hey, McDonald's wants to come on this property. You know, the property's value now has exponentially grown because they're a AAA tenant. Would you guys finance me? They're going to say this is 0 risk. They're going to finance you.
But like, not everyone would have a relationship with the McDonald's or Starbucks.
So
like, where should someone like me or someone else, where would you recommend we start?
Well, the same. I didn't have a relationship with McDonald's either.
You went in, yeah.
I went in.
Yeah.
So I would I would look into markets and I'll start creating relationships. So creating knowledge is one aspect, but network is even more powerful. So, you know, let's look at today. If you want to have a strong tenant, like back in the day, like a Subway. If you knew the area manager of Subway and you went out for a couple of beers with them and you went for dinner with them and you start chatting, you become friends, and they told you, hey, yeah, you know, we're looking to lease these things. And, you know, they're AAA tenants. I don't know if they are now, but they used to be. And they told you, hey, Raj, we're looking in, you know, Canal, right?
Yeah.
Or we're looking in small towns where things are very, you know, less expensive. There's a lot more opportunity to buy land there. You could simply say, okay, well, why don't I present you some properties to see if you'd be interested? You go to Canal yourself, right? You look at some properties, you put a contract in place, tie it up for next to nothing. You go back to them, you offer it to them. Because now you just create a relationship with them. He gives you a deal, and so that I've done that with basically no money.
That's a great thing.
Right? But it's just the power of networking and knowledge to be able to do that. There's other things a lot of people do, which obviously majority of Surrey has done, is land flips, right? Density plays. So, you know, if you're not looking at it from a cash flow perspective and you want to make money on land, you know, watching the news, I mean, this morning, I think, you know, now there's the government stepping in to give density to single-family houses. You know, it already happened in Vancouver. So this is a down market, so you can lock up land pretty cheap. Like, there's not multiple offers on people's homes. But if you know you can change it to a 6-plex, what's the land value going to be when it closes?
Crazy amount, It'll
but
increase.
You can do it with no money. But knowledge and your network will get you in the door with free. So knowledge is power.
Can you maybe share the example of, I don't know if you want to, but a deal you locked up in Kamloops, maybe how that worked out? Because that was also you sharing about how to use less money down and eventually changing the zoning. And
Kamloops is another one that we're actually working on McDonald's there. But that property wasn't on the market.
Okay.
So again, it was my connection with Suncor Energy, it was Petro-Canada. So the real estate head of the department, him and I became friends. And we were just sitting one day over lunch, and I said, you know, we're working on a deal on the island, actually. And I said, do you have any other properties in other markets that are prime? And he said, well, I got this deal in Kamloops that's happening, right? It's one lot. And I said, well, I would be really interested in that. And the reason why that got me super excited, because that was in downtown core. And I know any market that you're in, if you're in the downtown core, the long-term play is density. So if I can cash flow it for the next 20 years, it's going to be a high-rise site, which is going to go 20x minimum in value anyways, just on the land. So it got me really excited. I said, hey, I'd be interested in that. And he said, okay, well, let's put something together. So off-market, I mean, the property I got at a really good deal. And then once, and because they're billion-dollar companies and I have a relationship, he let me lock it up with, I think I gave him $20,000 down.
Wow.
For 3 years.
Holy smokes.
So that property was mine for 3 years for 20 grand. During those 3 years, I started figuring out what I wanted to put on it and putting the density play and getting it approved and zoned.
Yeah.
When it came to closing, the property went up 4 times.
Wow.
So I came in with, my 20 grand. My 20 grand, if I was to sell that property, actually made me a couple $1 million.
Wow.
Just on a flip, if I chose to flip it.
Of course.
But more importantly, it gave me now equity
Yeah.
to build out the project.
And you got a cheap property, like
Yeah,
a really low land cost.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So realistically, even though it's market value land, my equity's in there. I don't have to put any more cash in this project. The bank financed me 100%. In fact, they probably finance me more. I get money out of it.
Yes.
So that was one way,
Yeah.
just by getting that deal.
Yeah.
So again, it ended up being not just partially knowledge play, but more so a network play, creating synergies with the right guys that are in the market, that are in the real estate industry, that people don't have access to.
So on that note, on having that network, was that a really intentional effort for you, or did it happen organically over the years?
Over the years, intentionally was in the beginning, because we all knew when I had no money in the beginning, the only way for me to make money was these types of things. And obviously with my previous loss, that's how I'd gotten land even prior my loss as well. So I already had that in the mix. And since childhood, I remember when we were in my teens, my dad, I didn't understand the value of that. My dad used to tell me to go knock, because he was a single family house builder. But he didn't want to buy anything on the market. And I go, why? He goes, well, everyone's buying on the market. You want the stuff that's not. So he'd write these hand little letters.
Yeah, we buy homes for cash.
Yes. Way before it all started everywhere. And get stuff that was below market value.
Wow.
So that instilled in me, said, I can do that in commercial.
Yes.
I can do that in any aspect.
Yes.
And then I also learned through lots of lawyer friends over the years that a contract is such a powerful tool. That paper is money.
Yeah, and if it's assignable.
Exactly. So really, with the right lawyer, the contracts in place, you can make money without money in any market. And that's what I learned, right? So it was just, attributing my knowledge and my network and my focus onto that for me to level up financially, with or without money. And that was my, then there was this last window where it was next to impossible to get anything because there's multiple offers and everything.
Yeah, that was crazy. 2021?
Yeah,
that was like one of the craziest times.
Exactly. So it got tougher. But this economy right now
Yes, beautiful
is,
for that.
these down markets are the real time that everyone can really level up.
Yeah.
Right?
It's like
you
you
can't
gotta
look
be
at it.
bullish about it.
Everybody, we're like sheep. Right? When something hits, oh, hey, there's going to be an interest rate drop. They all start hoarding in. I start looking at things on emotion, on human psychology, saying, interest rate hike, pause. They pause, I go in.
Yeah.
Right?
It's like whatever everyone's doing, you avoid that.
You
do the
go
opposite.
the opposite.
Yeah.
Go the opposite if you really want to win.
Yeah.
But your mindset has to change to see value and seeing, okay, how do I structure deals now that I couldn't before? And the easiest way is, okay, well, if this is a down market, if someone's leveraged to sell, they might have time. So maybe they're leveraged because they got to make payments for the next 12 months. They don't have the money for the payments. But what if I gave, and I knew I just needed time, but I don't have all the money. So I need to get something rezoned for density, because I know it's going to be featuring new density in 12 months. Okay, here's the deal. The property's worth $2 million. Today, I'll give you your $2 million on contract. Here's $100,000 non-refundable.
To give you cash.
To give you cash. You can pay your payments down now for the next 12 months. Give me time now to do what I got to do from the city's perspective. At that next 12 months, that property, if I get it zoned to what I actually think it might be or it might go to, let's just say it's a single family that we've assembled that's going into 6-story apartments, that property is going to either double or quadruple at the end of it. So then I could actually, if everything happened in the right timing, at that 12-month period, I don't have to close with my own cash. I just tell a lender, here's the value today. They'll fully finance the $2 million.
Yeah.
So now I'm into the property for zero.
Yeah.
Because the value's gone double.
Yeah.
So that would be a trick you could play.
Absolutely.
Right? In down markets.
Absolutely. No, that's amazing. But just summarizing it, what I see is, okay, well, for anyone looking to start, like there's a few things. A, you got to get really intentional about your knowledge.
Yes.
You want to know about things. You want to know about cities changing, zoning, the
Correct.
FSR, like all that stuff. And at the same time, you got to intentionally network. Because even if you don't have access to those people, you can.
The most powerful thing you can do for yourself is number one, strengthen yourself, and number two is build your network and your knowledge in whatever industry and field you're in.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're in an operating business and you want to excel at that business, you got to build your knowledge. Right?
But how does, like, what would you recommend or advise for people? How can they build their networks?
The same way we all are, right? How'd you reach out to me?
Instagram. Same thing.
You just answered it, right?
No, just
how would I, depending on which circle I want to be in or what I'm going into, I'll make sure, let's say, well,
let's say we're talking about Pizza Huts or Subway,
okay,
right? Let's say.
There you go.
Like we're talking about area managers. These are not people on Instagram.
I go to their conventions. I walk around and introduce myself. Where are you guys looking? Pizza. Where are you guys looking? We're looking on the island right now. Okay, I would love your card. Can I go take you for a drink, or can I grab a coffee with you, or can I go for a dinner? I would love to. I'm active in those markets. If you guys are looking, let me see if I can help find you something. I'm making your job easier. Right? Most of these guys in the position are pretty cushy and they're comfortable. They don't want to go out to work. They want deals to come to them. If I'm the guy that's ready to knock on doors and make the deal happen, they like me.
Absolutely,
right?
We're making there, because they have to now they don't have to filter places, go through such an extensive research. You do that for them.
Exactly. So if you're focused to find cash flow tenants, go to every food convention around. Make that relationship, because the real estate guy, the growth guy, is at that show. That's why he's there, to grow his company or his brand. And not only that, it opens up the door to other brands that are up and coming that you didn't even think of. Right.
Absolutely.
So I think. Doesn't matter what industry or you're in, just understand that model. Like, it's funny, people say, well, this car wash industry is not big. Well, in Vegas, there's a huge convention with tens of thousands of people just on car washing.
Wow.
I got families involved in mini storage. There's a mini storage convention that goes on.
I think Vegas has a convention for everything.
There's a gas station, right? Wow. I was talking to another friend about importing, exporting products from China. There's a convention for that. Right?
There's many for that.
Right. So it doesn't matter which avenue you're attacking. You're gonna have to get up out of your bed, wake up, and get your ass in that door and introduce yourself and get to know these people.
Awesome.
And that's how you'll make the change, right? If you want to level up.
Awesome. Thank you. And I'll sorry, before we end, I'll actually switch a bit on some of the personal and relationship side there. How did you meet Manu, or how did you meet your wife?
Oh, her and I have known each other for probably over 15 years, but we just know it from afar, and we communicated over the years, but not relationship side. And then over the little 4.5 years ago, 5 years ago, she actually tagged me on an Instagram thing by accident.
Oh, wow.
And we were still following each other, but we weren't really communicating. And when she tagged me, I just responded back. I'm like, oh, could she delete it after? I go, I wasn't good enough for the post. That's how the conversation started. And then from there, we actually ended up talking about some business stuff and seeing some opportunities. And we actually went for a coffee. Yeah. We connected at that coffee. Nice. And from there on in, so, we started saying, oh, this natural energy connected. And I go, we both knew there was a spark. And after that, it was, we're here and married now. But
sorry, within that, because I see a lot of your, things like, of course, you're working out together, how even when you guys were getting married and had your functions, how, like, I could see she's so practical and simple with certain things. I was like, wow, that's so amazing. And just some, like, I think really cool partnership in how even she's kicking butt in her own ways with everything.
Having a solid partner is so critical in your growth. And I didn't even realize that because, she always talks, we talk on a podcast or wherever else in public that's saying, oh, it's Raj has gotten somewhere financially, but, we always say this back to her, the way I'm growing in the last few years with her has even 10x'd where I was prior to that.
And why do you think that is?
Because she's created that foundation for me now that I'm so comfortable in every aspect of my life that I have a partner also that encourages me to become better. She's the one that's encouraging me to be here on this podcast today. She's the one that's saying you got to get the voice out there because you have a story to tell. I didn't even know that the value of that, right? Vice versa. I see so much potential in her that she, I want her to continue to grow. So what happens is we're in this relationship environment that just keeps uplifting each other. And when you have that around you and then you start adding more to that, meaning by family and friends and all that stuff, it's just like this, it's like an eruption that grows around your in your bubble that everyone starts leveling up in their own way.
Yeah.
And that's where I see a solid foundation, a good relationship in this, in this realm makes such a big difference in your life. And not just financially, but in every which way. She's spiritual as well. Just getting up as a partner. I get up earlier than her, but she's right after me is coming along and saying, okay, did you do a meditation? Did you do this? Did you do that? And giving me reminders because we set the tone for each other in the beginning of the day. And then we both encourage each other to continue to level up every day. Now imagine having someone that beside you or behind you all the time that's pushing you to be a better person. You're naturally going to grow, right? And I didn't see the value in that until her and I were in this deep relationship and growing from it. So it's been amazing.
Wow.
I mean, I always don't like talking about relationship stuff because I'm so not used to it, but she even brings that out in me because I'm so happy as a human because I found somebody that's so supportive in my life, right? And it's really cool. It's just a really cool feeling.
Wow. And even I think your dad plays a big role in your life and throughout your
Absolutely,
journey.
yeah. No, he was since childhood. He's him and my mom. I mean, I've just had a good foundation, positive role models.
Yeah.
And the importance of a role model in your life doesn't matter who, like a friend or someone you look up to, or a parent or a sibling or a friend. It's so important because there's so many forks in the road that you can go that could be detrimental to you. But if there's someone always there that you're looking towards. I mean, heck, to be honest with you, if I didn't have my parents and my thoughts that day at McDonald's of who I had there as a backing and as a family, then maybe I wouldn't have been here today. So what is that pivotal role of a parent and a mentor and somebody you look up to? It's that. Yeah. It's life.
Yeah.
So, for me, it's instrumental, growing up in that type of environment. Yeah. And, I've made a lot of bad decisions in my life as well. And fortunately, that pillar, since childhood, because, we came from very, humble beginnings. And I remember those when I was a child. And just seeing my parents suffer during that time to where they are now and to where we are now gives me so much comfort to keep going.
Yeah. Awesome. And then, sorry, one of the things I really have to ask you then outside of that is, how do you find your mentors?
That's over the years, it continues to change and evolve. But it's what you're chasing. If you're chasing greatness, you follow greatness.
Yes.
So what's greatness to you, right? That's what I always ask, anyone that's following anybody, saying what inspires you, right? If someone you're looking up to as a mentor, is doing everything in this world that's good, that you're enjoying and you're excited about, then you're going to follow them. But if they're, if someone's going on a different path, then you start changing, right? Like I've had mentors that have grew up in a few years, but now have made a different path in their life, right? And they're not as, into business. They're on the downs, a different side path of their life, right? Yeah. Or they're not into relationships, or they're just into partying now and all that stuff. So it changes, right? So, it's really what you're seeking in this world as your journey is who you should follow. So what you have from within, go that route, follow that mentor, right?
And at this stage, what's your vision?
My vision, to be quite honest right now, is just being comfortable and continued growth and just to be better in every aspect of my life. Yeah. Not necessarily just financially, even though that's going to come naturally. It's just growing better and bigger as a human and understanding the true value of why we're here. Yeah. Right. And what does the universe have here for us? Like I always think this is a playground that the universe is putting us in here for a certain time. So if we can create value to others during this time, and if that's bringing us true happiness today, then let's follow that. Yeah. And let's not make judgments on the day, on our daily basis or on a week, or I'm going to put these milestones. Let's just continue down this path because every day it can change to become better and evolve.
Yeah. Raj, one of the things I'm loving about this conversation is I'm trying to even ask some business questions, and yet our conversation comes towards spirituality. And that shows a lot of personal growth, seasoning over the years, and a lot of thank you, because I love talking about that, and thank you for being an example of attaching that, because typically people keep that side separate and business separate. but the key side is it's in every area of your life.
No, and I didn't realize that myself until I had a lot of growth happen, right? And I didn't understand that spirituality, part of the business aspect, is actually making this business aspect grow exponentially as well.
Absolutely. It is,
and people don't understand that a lot, right? And they now it's starting to get more and more mainstream, a lot to do with social media, because a lot of people are sharing it. But the financial gain is one aspect of life.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what's true happiness? What's true happiness to you?
Well, again, I have a spiritual answer for that too. Like growing myself, my relationship with God that way and everything. But there's also all those different things I want to do with my family, the kind of person I want to become, how I bring joy into the life of others. Wealth is a part of it to fuel it. It's not like I want that much money. It's how can I use the money to build that life.
Now, you just nailed a lot of the aspects of the same reason why I'm towards that too, because you're enjoying that journey now. Before, when I was just after the financial model and not the spiritual model, I wasn't necessarily enjoying that path. I would just get up, make money. Get up, make money. Get up, make money. That was just drilled. It was like, it was like military. My dad was actually going to drill that into me because that's how you're going to grow. And whereas spirituality, I mean, if you're not enjoying the ride, then at the end of the day, what was the point? Absolutely. And one of that, turning points in my life for that was one of my mentors was the get up and make money. And as I see him go throughout his life, now today, he's a billionaire, but he's sitting in British properties in an empty 15,000 square foot house overlooking the ocean by himself. That wasn't happiness. And he even tells me, he goes, I wasted my life. I pushed my family away. I pushed my friends away because I was just getting after the money. And when I saw that, and I saw that he actually was almost at a down, he turned it around and said, listen, Raj, you're my mentor now because the spirituality I see in you now, I see the true value in. Saying, he goes, you can chase this thing your whole life and it's never enough. But once you get to the end, which is closely, he's in his last 10 years, call it, is what he says. And now I can't even enjoy it. And I go, that hit me so hard. I'm like, oh my God, I've been looking at this like entire wrong way. I should be enjoying this journey and appreciating the kind people that are around me and having this all, like, we're here for an experience at the end of the day. Let's make the experience the best.
Awesome. Thank you. And as we close, Raj, is there like a small quote or a saying you want to say, or any message you want to give to anyone else listening to out there?
Well, as you know, there's 3 words that I always say. Keep crushing it. Right?
So let's keep crushing it.
Let's keep crushing it. Right? Let's not hold back. Get out there. Let's take those chances. Let's get out there. Let's enjoy. And just become better human generally and surround ourselves with that kind of mindset.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. That was such a wonderful experience having you. And hope you guys loved this conversation as much as I did. Thank you. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
Take care.